After Janet Yellen came out and said she'd like to run the economy somewhat hot, what can Stanley Fischer say? Can he come in and say, no, sorry, I don't want to run it hot? I mean, well, he's limited.
His job is to calm fears today. She was speaking theoretically, but I brought along a chart that shows what she was talking about. You look at the economy's trajectory before the Great Recession, and it was on a much higher path than it is now. There's a sharp detour down after 2008 in trend growth. And if she feels if you run the economy hot, if you move the unemployment rate low and let wages rise to the point where inflation is above their 2% target, that will help close that gap. Well, that's the rate cut forecast. And you can see what happened on Friday after she said that. The odds of a December rate cut went down a little bit. And we'll see if that continues after Stanley Fischer, because what she did was worry the bond market. Even though she was speaking hypothetically, the bond market took it as, well, they're going to do this, and that's going to erode the value of our bonds and force the Fed to raise rates faster and farther.
Can she really afford to talk hypothetically when there is no clarity and there is so much confusion? That doesn't feel very responsible.
And, you know, I warned about this on Friday morning when we were talking about what the Fed chair might say, that this was a conference about what had happened and the theoretical possibilities for why the economy it wasn't growing as fast and what they could do about it. And the problem is the markets take everything as gospel, and they took the theoretical and made it real. At least they've priced some of that in.
But Mike, is that really the fault of market participants? We've talked again and again about the University of the Federal Reserve. Fed Chair Janet Yellen ran the subcommittee on communication. She knows exactly how the market is going to take comments like that. She also knows that a bulk of market participants won't read the speech. They'll just see the quote in a load of stories, and they'll read that quote and they'll act on it.
Immediately.
There's a certain amount of naivety coming out of the Fed to think you can deliver a speech like that publicly and not think people are going to act on it.
Well, it may be that she doesn't care, because she's guessing that the market reaction, while there will be some, won't be so much as to upset the system. They've let the genie out of the bottle. The Fed has gone to full transparency. How do you put that in? How do you tell Jim Bullard he can't talk anymore, or John Williams he can't talk anymore, or in this case Eric Rosengren, who really moved the markets by saying he thinks on Saturday that they are running that strategy and we are going to be hot by the end of next year? You can't really put that genie back in the bottle, so they've got to figure out, they've got to guess how the market is going to react.
I feel like Yellen always comes out more dovish than markets think, and then it's up to Fischer to kind of pull her back and then become more on the hawkish side. That's what it feels like markets interpret it as. If that is the case, what can he say today to help walk back her dovishness?
I suspect that you'll hear him repeat the Fed's mantra that we are going to be cautious and slow in raising rates, that we're not going to rush into this, that we still have some time before inflation breaks out. So I mean, he won't say December 14th we can raise rates, but he'll say we can raise rates soon. We don't have to do it tomorrow.
But didn't he say 2 just a few weeks ago or a few months ago?
Well, that's in the Fed dot plot too, 2 next year. Right. So he can say that, you know, this is we're on track. We don't see any reason to deviate. We're not suggesting that things are getting out of control. The Fed is on inflation watch. We won't cause any problems. We're just following what we have always said.
Mike, is it possible that she was not trying to be either hawkish or dovish, but she was trying to actually steepen the yield curve? Because the long-term bonds really reacted. If you look at WIRP, it didn't react very much at all. Right. It's still 68.6%, which suggests perhaps that there's a steepening of the yield curve. The short end didn't move.
Well, you would get a steepening in the yield curve if you think inflation is going to be higher, because you know, the long-term bond's going to need more protection. I'm not sure that was her idea, because there are other ways to do that. And it may not be lasting, because any kind of data that come along could affect that. Now, we had better than expected data this morning on industrial production that will feed into that. But at this point, I don't think the Fed is actively trying to manage the curve through its speeches.